Hey guys, welcome back to another interview here on Toned In Entertainment, and welcome back to my podcast. Everybody has a story, and my guest today definitely has a story, probably many of stories to tell, and that's Tyler Peters, who has joined me here on Toned In Entertainment. Tyler, how are you doing, my friend?
Tony, I am just doing fantastic. Thank you again for inviting me to be a part of your fantastic program. I am just so honored. So I can't wait to get into the conversation with you.
It's like me and you have known each other for several years now.
Yeah, we have quite a while now.
And we talk back and forth occasionally, you know, little chats here and there, but we've never really done any type of collaborations together for whatever reason. It doesn't make sense to me why it's taken till September 2023 for us to get together, but we are here together, and that's what counts.
Yeah, that is what counts. And I don't know why we waited so long. Maybe it's for these special occasions. It's to surprise everybody. And I'm bringing the heat because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. Maybe that's why Tony secretly did not want to collaborate, because that's not his team. So I don't know. I thought I'd throw that in there. Whether people get it or not is beyond me, but leave it to me to try to be the comedian here. So
I was going to say, I try to play the babyface role as much as I can in my interview. So Tyler will be the heel here on the interview. So we got a nice balance.
Why not?
Right? Why not?
Yeah, we do it. And I love the Owen Hart shirt, one of my favorites. So yeah, good choice.
Got to rock the pro wrestling tees. Do you get the pro wrestling tees crates by any chance, Tyler?
I've heard of them. I don't know that I've actually got one of their shirts. I've always got like the WWE merchandise or found some other shirts at like a TJ Maxx, or just using that as an illustration. But, you know, I've heard a lot of wonderful things about pro wrestling tees, so I'll have to check them out.
It's the one thing that keeps me subscribed to their like little monthly boxes. I think it's like $35, but you get 2 exclusive t-shirts that you can't get anywhere else. They don't sell them anywhere else. And then a bunch of other stuff, but the t-shirts are the reason why I buy the crate every single month, though. It's good stuff, though.
Well, you're keeping them busy, and that's important, Tony, just like so many others. And that just shows you're a fan. You love wrestling, and you're keeping their business model alive. I think they would appreciate you for it.
Well, speaking of pro wrestling, we got a lot to talk about, I think. And
yeah, we do.
Tyler, you're a very busy man, whether it's podcasting, doing some broadcasting. Where, you know, like I remember my first like real professional wrestling experience, right? Like as a YouTuber. Correct. Was interviewing Glacier. It was my first professional craziness, right? What was your first professional wrestling, like what would you consider work experience?
It has to be Kevin Sullivan. It's got to be back at Summer Glory of 2022. You know, if we're speaking of CCW, that has to be it. I share it on my Facebook memories. I'm a mark for the Taskmaster. I can't help it. I tried not to act like a mark beside of him, but when I came to the event, I did not have any expectation of working alongside such a legend. And when they told me, oh, yeah, by the way, kid, you're going to be doing commentary beside Kevin Sullivan, I started like sweating bullets. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I was nervous yet excited, but I'm like, I'm going to be sitting beside a guy that helped create the success of WCW. You think about the Florida territory with the faction he had, all the success and that wealth of knowledge from a Kevin Sullivan. I was just intimidated, but I learned so much because I would try to do as much as I could, but I would shut up when need be and just let a master talk. I would try to correspond with him like most broadcasters, but I'm still learning. I don't put myself in his level or a lot of the people you hear on CCW. I'm just a fan myself, and I'm trying to learn as I go through that creative process. So once again, I got to thank CCW and people like yourself for allowing me these wonderful opportunities. But I got to say, as far as working, that experience alone was just monumental. I was like, people couldn't believe it. They were asking me, wow, you really sat there by the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan? Here I am being a fan on your podcast. I was like, yes, I was. And, he couldn't have been any more gracious as some of the terminology I was trying to think of just then. I mean, he was so nice. But yet, if he wanted to be, that's what I was afraid, and I would be understanding if he was. But he was so gracious and kind. Can't thank him enough. So that has to be Kevin Sullivan. I'll try to sum it up. That's what I'm getting to. But I got excited just discussing it with you. I couldn't help it. All the feels were coming back. Some of that nervousness even was starting to flow. And here we go.
I know when I first started doing this, obviously, I mean, you get nervous, right? Especially when you're dealing with legends. Like a couple of my first guys were Gangrel and Jake.
Oh, yeah.
I was a nervous wreck. Was there anything that you did to help shake the nerves so that you could go out there and do the commentary for that show?
It was simply just getting with him, just trying to talk with him. And he was so nice. He's like, now I'm counting on you. So think about the nerves then. I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be relying on you. But he had enough confidence to go, hey, I'll just follow you, kid. And then, he would jump in when needed. And trust me, he was needed. It was a necessity. I mean, we're talking Kevin Sullivan here. And that's pretty much all that happened. It was pretty simple. And once the nerves rubbed off and I got comfortable, then it was like I was able to build a chemistry with him. And he was just so nice. I mean, he was so complimentary. And to me, that's one of my greatest achievements. If I don't do anything else, hey, I could say I got to do commentary with the Taskmaster, for crying out loud. So
That's
that
a
was
big freaking deal. Like a legitimate
Yeah.
gig with the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan. Much props to you. When I saw that picture, I was like,
Oh,
dude,
thank
I was
you.
like, that is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And it was like a pipe dream. It's like hey, you grew up on the Nitro era. Bischoff's even stated Kevin Sullivan, and a lot of those successful angles and storylines were due to Kevin Sullivan. So for him to be sitting beside me, I got to thank him for a lot of my childhood memories. I mean, I really do.
When you wrapped up that show and it was completed, what went through your mind at that time?
I was like, could this be real? It's that question. It's like, am I in a fantasy land? Imaginary. Now, talk about fantasy booking. If you wanted to have a broadcaster besides you, I mean, other than, Jim Ross or Tony Schiavone, but come on, any kind of wrestler that's got that kind of iconic status, especially knowing his history in Florida, but all the territories. You saw him in Crockett, you saw him in NWA, then later WCW, even wrestled, I think, for Vince Sr. up in New York. So he's been everywhere, and he knows it all in a great way, and he's down to earth. Unfortunately, you meet certain legends, and they're not always so nice. But Kevin Sullivan, I will compliment him. He was such a gentleman. Is one way to sum it up.
Now, I've never done play by play. It's the one thing I haven't dabbled into in the industry. How did you prepare to do play by play, not only to, just be good at it, but to actually get hired to do play by play for a company that's held in such high regards as CCW is now?
Oh, certainly. CCW is where it's at. I'll tell you, it really, Tony, it came through podcasting, believe it or not. It came. I want to thank the Rewind Wrestling Radio podcast. They are no longer doing podcasts, but you can still check out some of their stuff on YouTube. And also a mentor of ours, speaking of that same podcast, Joel and Joe, who actually had a wrestling radio show. And he was interviewing wrestlers similar to yourself on a college radio station. And that's where the connection with Nelio came in CCW. So at first he was like, hey, why don't you ring announce for an event in Nashville? which, I was like, that didn't go too good. I was like, some things are not meant to be. Maybe if I tried it more like the commentary, it would have came. And luckily there was a more experienced guy that was there who was very good. So thank God for that, or it would have just been terrible. But either way, that's to sum it up. That's where the connection came in. And it's thanks to that Rewind Wrestling Radio podcast for allowing me to have an opportunity with Nelio, because a lot of them have done CCW, been given some opportunities, and very talented, all of them. And also, going back to the Jolt and Joe story, it's really interesting. When COVID, the pandemic hit, it went from a radio show to more of a podcast platform, and more into the Rewind kind of family. He retired, so we carried on the best we could, and life occurs, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. But I want to shout them out, because I feel like they don't get enough credit, especially with my journey, and folks like a Joel and Joe. If he gets a chance to listen to this, I want to tell him how grateful I am to him, and of course Coastal Championship Wrestling, Nelio, yourself. I mean, I'm just a normal guy, man. I'm like anybody. I just love this stuff. I'm no insider. I mean, I may contribute to WrestleBuddy and some of these other platforms, and I'm thankful for it. But I'm not going to say, hey, I'm a Sean Ross Sapp or anybody. I'm not to that level. I'm just very humbled and blessed with the experience that I've been able to have. And if I ain't careful, I'll get emotional, because it means so much. It does.
I was gonna say, not many of us are going to be at that level of a Sean Ross Sapp. He's got that really on lockdown.
Oh, he does.
He's got all the connections. He gets the scoops, and he gets legitimate, like, good news, versus like a lot of places that just regurgitate garbage out there. I would say he gets a lot of the good stuff, and he's one of the best at what he does, if not the best at what he does as far as getting news. And you see everybody quote him too, like according to Fightful Select.
Oh, they do.
That's all that they do, right? I mean, that's everybody's news.
You listen to all the major wrestling podcasts, they quote him. So that goes to show you he's doing something correct. I mean, he's got some very good trusted sources. So that's why he's one name that I mentioned. That's like you said, he's trustworthy. He seems to have his finger on the pulse as far as the wrestling community. So that's why I'm just drawing the parallels, not the comparisons. That, hey, I'm just doing what I can do. I'm not trying to dare say I'm in a lot of these people's leagues, but I'm just so proud that I've able to experience, independent wrestling as well as professional wrestling, and what CCW is able to provide. They remind you of what the CWF. I mean, you've been there, Tony, interviewing. I mean, you've experienced a lot of the shows more down there in Florida. I've only got to be in the Nashville area and get to fulfill the dream there, which is still very cool. I'm still very excited to do it, by the way. It's just there's just so much going on. They are like a last regional promotion. When they say the last territory, I mean, they mean it. They are doing some positive and just reassuring things that I think a lot of wrestling fans like ourselves are proud to be a part of.
It's ridiculous. Like, as I think we're probably about in the same age group, but and us growing up with different wrestling periods and stuff like that. And I just remember how bad independent wrestling was at one point. Like, my friends and I used to go just to laugh, because it was a bunch of old guys, and Marty Jannetty was the headliner at the show, and it was like maybe like one or two guys that could make it, big. It was like, watch out for that guy. Watch out for Billy Fives, because Billy Fives can be good. There was like one or two guys that could be really good, but it was really bad. But like the indie scene now, and I've told everybody, I'll go on record again here, I'm telling everybody right now, CCW is better than any wrestling out there, including what's on TV. Period. That's my statement.
I think they are. I think that's a safe statement, because I like the stuff that's on TV. There's a lot of talented individuals.
Yeah, we're not hating on it.
But don't get me wrong. No, I agree with you. I think CCW is raising the bar on the indie scene as well as semi-professional, because you've interviewed them, a lot of former NXT AEW personnel, Impact, that passed through there, and those Bash at the Bruce shows, that's what everybody tells me. I need to get down there, experience some of the Florida shows. No offense to the Music City, but there's just something about being at the home base down there in Florida for those CCW events that are stellar. Plus, like Ozzy was talking about when you all did your podcast last night, everybody's getting drunk and having a good time anyways, and why not? It's great violence, wrestling. It's that soap opera everybody needs.
And when he says 600, 700, 800 people that they're doing now, he's not lying. You can't even see the back of the crowd. It is
Wow.
packed, standing room only. It is just it's my favorite wrestling show of the month. That's for sure. Now you mentioned about ring announcing, okay, and you said I've
Yeah.
listened to your commentary. I've heard you call some of the Qrown matches and stuff like that. Why don't you think that you're good at doing interviews? I've seen your live podcast. You're good at commentary. Why don't you think that ring announcing clicked for you then?
I just think I have to do it more. I think I wasn't confident because it was my first time. There, the jitters, and there still will be nerves. Even when you're good. I mean, you could probably ask Michael Cole and Pat McAfee and all those guys and like a Taz and to use different examples. So it's not pro one way with regarding a certain promotion. I'll use a lot of examples, but I don't know. I think it's my anxiety and maybe my self esteem issues, knowing that hey, it wasn't as good the first time, and really that should have been a teachable moment. And maybe if I do it more, I'll eventually go, hey, it's no different than anything else. You have to grow in the process if you're going to improve and get better. And I think it's as basic as that. But it's easy to overanalyze, overthink things, and beat yourself up when it's good sometimes to be constructive, but it's also a detriment if you're not building yourself up. And I got to admit, I've had my struggles. Even after that experience, I was kind of frustrated with myself. But people had to tell me, listen, it's your first time. Don't be too hard. But luckily, I had Sean Bossman, the experienced ring announcer. That's his name. Shout out to him. Kind of a great throwback. I mean, not kind of, he is. Let me restate that. Like Howard Finkel. I mean, he looked up to some of the greats. He's got that just tremendous voice, and he was very imperative to helping me understand. So thank God I had him and for CCW. But Nelly took a chance. I mean, I think it's what's great about it, Tony, is you got to take risk. You got to get out of that comfort zone. And sometimes, like everybody, I get a little too comfortable. And even with commentary, I have to learn, hey, listen, there's going to be mistakes, but that's how we grow. Sure, you don't want to make them, but it's part of human nature. We've got to try to be persistent and allow those mistakes to become more strengths than weaknesses. And a lot of times, I think that's just the difference. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I know how hard it is because you're somebody who's very passionate about what you do, about what you watch, about what you put out. I'm
Oh,
somebody who's
thank you.
extremely passionate. So when things don't, you may not see the numbers or you may not see the results right away. It's easy to get frustrated. But I believe you are somebody that just has that deep down passion for it. That like whether it's 3 people or 3 million people going, you are going to put all your work and dedication and give it your all no matter what.
Sure, that's my hope. I try, just like yourself. I mean, you're a great example of a passionate and, to me, a very professional. When I watch your interviews, I've told Tony for your audience off air that I use that's instrumental on my commentary research, and I've even credited him because you help learn about those characters, and it's very vital when you're trying to get over a certain storylines, and the same with CCW magazine. Hey, I've got to be honest, I've used the spotlight. I'll go, hey, oh, this is cool. I'll just reword it, but I'll give them credit. And everything and different sources on the internet doesn't mean they're always correct, but as long as they're close, hey, listen, I've heard wrestlers kind of exaggerate anyways. It's that kind of business. So if nothing else, as long as you're somewhere in the ballpark, you can still go for it.
Has there what is your favorite match that you've ever called? One that really just stands out to you that you had the pleasure of calling.
Wow, that's a great question. I'm even thinking there's been so many. I got to tell you, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings on the roster, but there's one match this past show in Nashville that I haven't got a chance to commentate his match, but Colby Cowan, I believe is his name. He's a new sensation, very talented guy. He's actually the new international champion for CCW, but he took on Beastman,
Correct,
and
right. Okay, he did beat
that
Batesman,
was a
right.
great match. Yeah, Lew Spectre. I mean, that's all you need to know. The crowd was hot; they were ready to beat up Lew. But and I mean, it was electric. There were people getting in Lou's face, and definitely Colby was that hometown hero. Just had a feel good story right off the bat. I mean, when he debuted back a few months ago, and I like the progression of his story, and Beastman being this old school kind of monster heel that even scares us at the table. I mean, he comes out shaking, chewing that big old.
Oh, I think we lost you for a second there, Tyler.
Tell you, it
Oh,
is
that
something else.
okay. There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah, you froze there for a second. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I was afraid that was going to happen. Part of being alive, but no, I'll go back to Beastman. Reminds me of being that old skull top heel. You know, that monster. That's what I'm saying. He'll scare you at ringside of the broadcast table. That's why I'm being repetitive in case it froze right then.
He is. He's definitely the. I mean, he is a ferocious animal in there. He's got Lew Spectre at his side. So between the two of them, like
Oh
you're in
my
for
word!
trouble no matter what with those guys out there at ringside.
Lou was telling me to not so nice of words, and I couldn't help but say, man, this guy gets it though. I mean, Buddy Rogers broke him in. I did not know this, but Lou was telling me, he's like, hey, here's you some commentary notes. The original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, got me into the business. So I'm like, well, I can tell because Lou understands psychology.
He
He knows
does.
how to
Yeah.
get under the fan skin. And to me, that's some of those old territory crowds that, man, don't go to those extremes anymore, but they used to cut the tires. I mean, a lot of the wrestlers would have to get physical with them. I mean, that's the kind of heat that Lou brings in Beastman. So in a lot of ways, I admire that. Where some people probably from a newer school of thought go, wait a minute, he's going too far. But listen, here's another thing. If you're going to get involved and try to touch the wrestlers and shove them, don't get mad when they have to retaliate because you're in their world. You can be a fan, but you also got to be respectful and show a little bit of caution because those guys. Let me tell you, I don't want to upset Beastman. He's already pumped up enough when he's getting ready for a match, and then Lew Spectre. I don't want him unleashing any of his guys because my gosh, he's got Blake Troop now, guy that's been in MMA, so he can stretch you, he can make you submit, he can knock you out. So that's what I'm saying. You hear all the stories. It's still prevalent today. Don't be touching the talent because that's not going to be good for you. And that's my advice to some of the fans that I would see. I'm like, hey, listen, it's okay to cheer and get into it, but don't be making a fool of yourself. Don't get too caught up in the moment.
Yeah, I think Blake Troop. I mean, I know Blake Troop is an absolute monster, like an absolute like wrecking ball of destruction with the people. I've seen him get in the ring and make, you know, mincemeat of them pretty
Destroyed.
easily. Yeah. There's a couple people that have been able to hang in there. Nick Turner had a good match with him a couple weeks ago, but I mean, he just comes in and just beats the crap out of everybody. And whoever's holding those championships in CCW has a lot to look out for because, I mean, Jackal Stevens now the champion. I'm a huge fan of Jackal Stevens. Meto is ripping through CCW as a Southeastern champion. But Blake Troop, I think anybody he sets his eyes onto, it's going to be extremely tough for the opponents to deal with.
It's going to be very difficult. I agree with you, Tony. And something about Nick Turner, he's got that MMA kind of background too, or mixed martial arts. So that's actually a pretty good matchup between because I was thinking of their styles going against one another. But Blake Troop could be like your next Brock Lesnar. I mean, he could go in and just totally be dominant. And Jackal Stevens, one of my favorites, definitely world champion. I love your interviews with him, the interactions. He always teases me because he's like, "How you doing, Tyler?" He's like, "I should have known you'd ask me something wrestling." Just be laughing because he probably didn't want to talk about it right then, but he just has a good laugh. He's a good ribber. And then, of course, Meto. I'll tell you, that spear looked incredible. I love watching him execute that to finish a match. That guy's going to be a future CCW World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, if not to bigger and the bigger promotions out there, there's no reason why he won't be in WWE or AEW at some point.
Well, yeah, either one of those. He's got the look, he's got the presentation, and let's face it, with Miro leading the charge out of Bulgaria, he's kind of in that same vein. He's just you can make him that monster heel like what he's doing, where he's kind of like Blake Troop, just in a different way, where he's going out, having competitive matches when it's necessary. But if they need the squash matches to help establish themselves further, I mean, that's what they need to do.
It's so funny. Meto was one of the biggest baby faces in CCW. Maybe right after like Cha Cha Charlie, because I can't not say that Cha Cha Charlie's not the biggest,
Oh,
baby
yeah,
face in
Char's up
CCW.
there.
Yes, but
Everybody loves the dance and the hat and all the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
But yeah, I was at the Bash at the Brew when Meadow turned heel and he came in, but he was wearing like a mask and a full body gear. And he came in and interfered in a match and helped Ariel Levy keep the title over Vinicius. But when he speared or came in and interfered in that match, I turned to my wife and I said, "Oh my God, I think that's Meadow." And me being a huge babyface guy and a huge Meadow fan, I tell Meadow to this day, I'm starting a new hashtag, Meadow Breaks Hearts, hashtag Meadow Breaks Hearts, because not only did he turn and become a heel, but he's also poured a beer over my head, and now he's flipping me off when I'm trying to record
Nice.
him. So
Hey,
I think he's
he's
found his
got it down.
purpose. Yeah, he has found
No,
his
I
groove.
think he has found his purpose. I'll just use what word you use there. But I did not know he was pouring the beer, and I mean he's putting it to you. I mean he's really embodying what he should be doing, and you're right. I see a lot of the CCW history. I have to go back and watch the Alives or catch some of the results because I forget he was a major babyface at one point.
Yeah, definitely. Now let's get back on to you for a little bit, Tyler, because we need to hear a little bit more about
Okay.
your story. You know, I've been a wrestling fan. Again, I tell everybody since the day my dad brought me home from the hospital. When did you realize that you had this love of professional wrestling?
It had to be about the early to mid '90s, if I'm going to be honest. As much as I like the old school territory stuff, well, and really, if you compare it to today, it is still very traditional in the sense of the word. To me, it was some of my favorites were Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson. Uh, to me, not only great workers, the promo skills were off the charts. I look back at Jake the Snake Roberts, somebody you interviewed, the psychology, the way he performed in the ring, Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, also Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, and Godspeak and may Bray Wyatt rest in peace, Terry Funk, a lot of the same thing, going back to the Funks and Briscoes and Sting. I mean, Sting, I was a big supporter like yourself of the Stinger, whether it was the Surfer variation, the Crow variation. And I got to admit, it took me a little bit to get used to the Joker Sting, but he pulls it off very well. I actually, and it's growing on me. And at Wembley, it was very neat to see him bring it out, do the English accent, and then change. I thought that was kind of cool. And him and Darby are making a nice tandem. I really like the two together, the whole goth thing. And with Judgment Day, it seems like it's still in, man. It's still super cool. Like you look back at the Undertaker and Kane, some of them, of course, the Kane story was great when Paul Bearer would come out there. I love Paul Bearer, anyways, and when he was revealing to the audience that hey, Undertaker's got this brother that he mistreated, that he left alone, and making Undertaker really out to sound very terrible. And then when Kane debuts, and the whole meme, I think Vince McMahon says it's got to be Kane. It's just brilliant. I mean, it is. It's just I love the storytelling. Uh, a lot of the same people, Mick Foley, whether he was Cactus Jack or Mankind or Dude Love. I think Dude Love's underappreciated. I love some Dude Love, and there's so many. Really, I need like Jericho's list, but twice or three times. I mean, Jericho's up there. But as far as well, I'll tell you one of my favorites, Bret Hart. I cannot leave Bret Hart or Owen Hart, like I mentioned at the top of the program. Those two to me set the bar up high. Rick Rude. I mean, it could go a lot of different ways. I was into so many different eras. Like yourself, I was able to capture so many moments. So it was the first time I think the wrestling was on the TV and something already enamored me. And this is before I really knew about the storyline aspect or what they were necessarily doing in the ring, but it just caught my eye. It was very interesting how that just it seemed my interests were drawn automatically to this thing we now know as pro wrestling, and it was just not only they were athletic, but they were telling a story in the ring and with promos backstage or in the ring, or you'd see segments outside. That's where the soap opera kind of aspects come into play. So it was a lot of intricate details. And the older I got, the more I started processing and understanding more the creative approach of how they were doing it, not claiming I knew how it was made or how they manufactured it. But anyways, just what I mean, you comprehended it a little more. It's amazing the things, Tony, you don't appreciate or don't actually see or notice to you, in other words, until you get older and start picking up on some of these little nuances. But I think it's wonderful. And I know I kind of randomly was throwing a lot of names in there, but I was trying to think, gosh, I've got a lot of favorites when I think about it. Ricky Steamboat, there's another one. So
Now, promo work was like, I mean, you had to bring it back in the 80s, right? In the early
oh, you
90s
did.
and whatever. Is that one of the things you think is lacking in a lot of wrestlers to this day is promo work?
I think so. Now there's a lot that are still very consistent. You know, that do really well, and that whether scripted or not, is as long as they kind of make it their own delivery. But I think there is something missing. Like Piper was one of my favorites. Roddy Piper, back in the day, like I mentioned, Jake the Snake Roberts, Ted DiBiase, Ric Flair. Uh, I'll tell you another wrestler that I thought was very articulate and intelligent who influenced Ric Flair. And I think, well, or they were friends because back in the AWA was Nick Bockwinkel. I love Nick Bockwinkel going back studying some traditional kind of wrestling under Vern Gagne. Arn Anderson, I mean, a masterclass of promos. You believe him. I mean, every word. So I think some guys do it well, but it's definitely lacking because I think they've got to make us suspend our disbelief, make us buy into what they're selling us through their words. And I think, unfortunately, that does lack, not entirely, but I think you can tell, when they're upcoming and they're probably not as comfortable. So I get why they're probably a little more scripted or there's at least the bullet points as we hear sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like back in our days, I feel like pretty much everybody was able to cut at least a decent or good promo. But like, I'm just
Right.
not a huge fan of the promos that are on nowadays either. Like, a lot of them just get interrupted backstage or they're cut short. They don't. I feel like I wish that was something that would come back, that they would actually like let the people really portray their hatred or their disgruntlement or their happiness
Me too.
for the situations that are going on in their storylines in wrestling.
Well, and you just said story. I don't think they're getting the story over enough in the promos. It's too much going all over the place. I don't mean randomly, but it's sometimes you're like scratching your head. Wait a minute, what are they doing? We're trying to sell a match, and whether it's a pay per view or a Dynamite or a Raw, or you can use a lot of different variations or NWA Impact, and yeah, make us start buying what you're trying to get over. I mean, because you're not only trying to get over your opponent in the ring, but it's a lot of outside the ring criteria. So that yeah, you brought up an astute observation that
I
it's true.
love
It's all story.
I love when the local promotions make their or insist, I should say, insist on their talent cutting promos for their matches. Like, I really think it brings a lot of like believability and me wanting to buy those tickets. I wish I would see more. I mean, there are a handful of guys and girls that do it on a regular basis for a lot of different promotions, but I really wish we would see. I mean, I want a reason for my butt to be in that seat for me to purchase that ticket, right? And I think I really wish
Right.
wrestlers would understand, the ones that don't do it, how important it is not only for us to get excited and invest in your story, but also I think it pays off a lot in the after the show stuff with the merchandise, people buying the 8x10s and stuff like that. A lot of guys are killing it out there, and girls with the promos to the merchandise work. But there's also a lot that just don't do it, and I really wish all of them would see the importance of it.
I'll tell you a guy that's has always got it, but he's getting better each and every time is Ricky Starks.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, that's another guy that if we're talking promos that I think's conveying his message real well. And I must say, I agree with a lot of people's sentiments that he and Big Bill's pairing. I like it. I didn't know how I would feel about it, but I know we're kind of we're drawing a lot of the comparisons. But yeah, Ricky Starks is somebody that definitely jumps out. I mean, and that for AEW, and I think for WWE, LA Knight's doing some great stuff. With the Yeah movement, and he's entertaining. So that and there's others too. It's so hard to recall everybody. So I'm sure once we're done, it'll start hitting me. That's normally how it goes. But
Tyler, on average, how many hours of wrestling do you watch a week?
well, I got to be honest. I watched Collision from last weekend because between trying to do other podcasts and then try to do articles, I mean, I know you can relate, and then CCW stuff, which I'm enjoying. It's not that it's a bad problem, but it is hard to digest all this content. Which it's great for wrestling, but in some ways I also have other interests. Like I like music, I like football. With being a Cowboys fan, I like college sports. Being in Tennessee, I go for the Vols, and so it's tough on weekends, and that's where Collision may have some problems because you're getting a lot of people that they're either viewing stuff or it's getting fall or like during the summer previously they want to get out. So you do run into a lot of just reality sometimes with that programming, but for what they're able to draw with the audience, I mean, I'm not even going by ratings and all that stuff. I'll leave that for the experts. They're still doing pretty decent and drawing some pretty good numbers. But I will say though, I say that, and hey, speaking of not just the professional wrestling promotions, the independent promotions like a CCW, hey, you can fool a lot of people because, like you said, those Bash at the Brew shows are on Saturday nights, and they're what, over 700, you said? People a lot of times standing even. I mean, so what do I know?
On the night where the Great American Bash is going on too, by the way, when Jackal Stevens won his title off of Ariel Levy, it was the same night as the Great American Bash. On top of that, and still that hardcore audience still shows up for those shows.
See, I appreciate their loyalty as fans. That really is a telling sign. And boy, Jackal beating Ariel, I saw the clip. I don't get a chance to watch all the footage. Even that gets a little bit challenging, but that was a huge moment. I'm happy for Jackal. I thought Ariel did a fabulous job, but hey, I was not expecting it. I didn't know if Jackal would, with all due respect to him and both of them, I did not know he was going to walk out the champion. But hey, what a moment!
Right. Now, let me ask you a personal question. You're a Tennessee guy, so how do you become a Dallas Cowboys fan?
Well, before the Titans became a team, or a lot of people like the Steelers here. It's a wild audience, just like with baseball teams. On my mom's side of the family, my grandfather liked Roger Staubach. He goes back before the '90s teams, back in the '70s, and Tony Dorsett. So it kind of got it was impressionable to me from an early age to become a Dallas Cowboys fan, and much to the chagrin of other friends or other family members who they all have a good time, fun. It's nothing personal. When it gets to be personal, it's like anything. Why do you have to? Then I just ignore it. It's kind of like these apps, Twitter, Facebook. Some of the toxicity when there can be some positives. Use it like your podcast. I think they're wonderful. I'll just direct them to Tony. Like, listen, if you need positivity in your life, you can go to, try DDP, Tony Miller, or any of the people because they're so nice and warming, inviting. I mean, you really are. So I can tell why people love to be interviewed by you because that's why my expectation was high. I mean, I was honest with Tony. I saw what he did. I'm like, man, I'm just so happy for the guy. Even before I got an interview, I was like, this is cool. Yeah, I wanted to let you know that.
I appreciate that. Well, since you're talking about my interviews, who is somebody that you would like to see me interview at one point in time?
That's tough because you've interviewed quite a bit, and I'm trying to think it now. But CCW's got a lot of new ones. Once again, great questions, making me think here.
Yeah, because
Let me
I
see.
feel like I might put you on the spot here because you might see somebody that I've interviewed and you haven't watched the interview yet. So
Hey, exactly. Yeah.
yes, I don't want to put you on the spot like that. I realize I just did. You could be like, oh, the Qrown, but I'm like, Tyler, I interviewed the Qrown. Did you see the interview?
Yeah, that's well, and I was gonna say the Qrown. Big fans of what they're doing, the CCW Tag Team Champions. I'll tell you, and I know people are gonna go, man, you've already talked that that's your favorite match, but I got a feeling he'll be down in Florida too. Is Colby Cowan, the I hope I'm saying his name correctly. The guy that's the new international champion. And also, what about Freya the Slaya from OVW? Have you had a chance to interview her?
She's
That's
coming down
somebody else.
here. She's coming down here next month, October. She's going to wrestle the women's champion, the Detroit Barbie, Marina Tucker, at the next bash at the Brew Show.
Boy, speaking of women who are continuing their success, Marina Tucker, not only with CCW, wow, uh, the Women of Wrestling promotion out in Hollywood. I'm so happy for her. Marina works hard and she is so talented and she can draw the heat if she needs to. And if you need her to be, be the baby face, hey, she can go out there and do that as well. So it
Hey,
speaks to
don't.
everybody's
I think she's going
versatility.
to be offended by that part. I think she loves being the heel.
Oh, she does, and I'll
I think
take the
she
heat for it because
does.
if she sees me, she's going to go, listen, I don't like what you said. Yeah. Hey, here's a funny story. I was broadcasting with a good friend of mine who's talented, Chris Belcher, who's done some the shows in Nashville with me. And it was Marina Tucker, and I forget who she was facing. It may have been Christy James or somebody like that. It was a good match back at Helios Granite was the venue. And I can remember vividly. And this is what's great. I didn't see it coming. I was down there at ringside. She makes her entrance, comes down, and throws one of her accessories or glasses or something at me, like she was discussing with me. But it was perfect, and I just I went along with it because I thought, hey, that's how you do it. If you're going to learn from even what they're doing, showing you. So I'm going to try to compliment her. I'm sure she may want to backhand me, but Marina, if you're watching, forgive me. I'm just trying to give you compliments, but I understand you are very mean and I'll tell you, I would not want anybody to cross her. I'll tell you, she is just one tough Detroit Barbie. I'll tell you, she is a tough Motor City gal.
Yeah, the last time I did an official interview with her, I did a interview with her at Pro Wrestling Action a couple months ago, but we did more of a fun. It was a radical 90s theme. We just did a little radical questions, but the last time I officially interviewed her was right before her the first ever CCW women's main event, and it was in a steel cage, and she went to war with Kylan King and Tyler. Let me tell you, those two women,
Oh
not
man,
only are they two of the best in the business, period, but like they absolutely crushed each other and as well as I think any expectations of
I
what
saw some
ladies
of
could
it.
do in that steel cage. Yeah, it was amazing.
It was an amazing steel cage match, and Colleen King is somebody else who I think now I'm so happy for her at Impact and getting. I'll tell you, I think her match a lot of her matches, and Miranda Gordy. They had a great match back when she was a women's champion. Now I'm starting to remember some of these matches, but it's funny. I don't mean this disrespectful, but it becomes a blur after so many. It really does. And I don't even have the years that Dan or when Blake was around. And now look at Blake. He's in NXT. I mean, doing very well. Some of the original voices of CCW. So I'm at their mercy. That's examples to learn from, and so many others that have sat beside me. And that I could talk about. But yeah, that's definitely Colleen King. I'm glad you mentioned her name. That's another who you're just impressed with. You saw her a little bit in AEW. I could see her in an NXT at WWE, but I'm so happy her and Taylor Wilde with the Coven are doing well because I try to keep up with Impact a little bit too when I can.
It's so hard. It really is the
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like what I mean by keeping up. I'll see a clip or read it on Twitter. It's not like I can, and I'll try to watch actual shows. I do because I want to try to watch alternatives because I think that's important. It's healthy for wrestling not to just have WWE or AEW. It's good for Impact, NWA, New Japan to be doing well, Mexican promotions that do great, South America, so and globally, and that's why I think the markets are so strong. That's why we're seeing Wembley Stadium and for WWE going to London, and then I think there's more discussions about going somewhere else. So who knows where else they'll show up.
I think that's such a key importance to why posting your stuff on social media is so important for every guy and girl out there because we, as much as we try to watch everything, we can't see everything, but it's maybe catching a clip or a highlight that you post that can bring us back into the programming. So I'm always thrilled when I see people who constantly promote themselves. Some people think, oh, maybe I promote themselves too much, but you know what? Everybody has such limited time and such short attention spans that that 5-second clip might be the difference of us just bringing us in and learning something new about them, or just bringing us back to their product.
You're exactly right. Because I'll tell you, my attention span anymore has got short. I mean, even when I'm commentating, I have to be careful. I get distracted, even though I'm focused. I'm like, if I get a one thought or some notion or get to looking when I'm supposed to be paying attention, it's just like I'm a kid back in school. I'm going to have the teacher come back slap me or something because I'm not paying attention. I'm going to have Nelly send one of the wrestlers. Hey, pay attention. You got to focus here.
Well, what subject did you zone out most in school? We all had that one subject, right?
Well, you can probably tell English. That was one of them. I should have paid attention writing and speaking. That would have came in handy. Science, even though I do like science a little better now, I was more into history. That was one subject I liked. Geography, because I was interested in it. And that helps. Let's face it. It just there was a lot I zoned out that I shouldn't have. I was never a good math student. I still give people a $20 bill and just expect to change because don't expect me. I don't care if it's addition, subtraction. I mean, I'm lucky to know 4 plus 4 unless I don't have a calculator. So,
Thank God the debit cards do all the work for us nowadays.
well, yeah, with the way technology, yeah, thankfully, or I'd still be in trouble. And sometimes I still do, even with the debit card. I'm like, they'll have to help me, scan it because I'm like, sir, that's not the right way. I'm like, hey, I'll just be honest with you. It's a user error. It's me.
It's me. It's not your machine.
Yeah, trust me, it's not the machines. It's this one. I'm not a machine, but it's just this human that should have common sense. He doesn't. I mean, I'm going to be very transparent.
I love the honesty. I love the realness.
Well, hey, I try, man. I think that's what people appreciate. A lot of times we want to sugarcoat it. I've been guilty of it. I mean, as people, but I think we need to quit. We just need to be honest, man. And I think that's why everybody appreciates programs like you, CCW, because their wrestling is authentic. It's realistic. And hey, I appreciate some of the guys saying, hey, listen, I need you to say this, or, that's good constructive criticism. I need to hear it. So if I'm getting something wrong, I want you to tell me so I can get it right.
Tyler, with all the things that you're doing, from the writing to the podcasting to the commentary, do you have a bucket list item that you would love to achieve before you just go off and do other things one day?
I would like to now if WWE said, yeah, just for like an interview, to be an interviewer, I would take it, or be some kind of in production. I wouldn't even mind being behind the scenes in production somehow. I mean, to me, that I've always been impressed with their video packages and the way they edit, and just to me, a fly on that wall. Those meetings would be something. And I've always wanted to do that. I wouldn't mind AEW or Impact. I mean, not just WWE, or even more with CCW, but because to me, they are the big leagues as far as I'm concerned. If I don't do anything else, they've gave me an opportunity to achieve what I've desired for a long time. If it wasn't going to be wrestling, I still wanted to pursue baseball or some kind of sport, trying to do broadcasting. So.
And I have seen you post pictures of you doing and videos of you doing play by play at sports games like baseball games as well too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, it was PA announcing. It was
Right.
for softball for a couple years. Yeah, high school, which would, some similarities, but PA announcing is kind of like you're doing ring announcing in a sense, not really, but I would kind of say some similarities. But yeah, I mean, I would like to do, some kind of play by play, even learn color a little bit, because you don't realize how tough that is till you do it. And that was something I had to even partake, because it was easy kind of at the house. And I still, it's good practice, but until you're there, like at the show still, I mean, and especially since they're doing these CCW lives, which is great experience and exposure. I'm like, I hope I look okay on camera, because I wish I was like one of these good looking wrestlers, but I'm not. So I've got a face for radio. I'll just be honest. Let me just try to get my good side, whatever side that is. So.
Well, during my day job, I do a lot of camera work and stuff like that. And people say, hey, can you get my good side? And my answer always to them is, how can I not get your good side if you don't have a bad side?
Right. No, that is accurate. I mean, that is very good. I mean, and you're talented at the cameras. I mean, to me, you would be a great producer. I mean, if I had to ask you the question, I mean, I could see you doing a lot, very multifaceted, but yeah, I think to going back to that answer, just anything to do. If I could do the big promotions, that'd be great, even a one off. But if I had done nothing else, I've got a chance to do a lot of pretty amazing things for CCW in Nashville. So and
Well,
stuff. I got a little distracted there. I got dogs trying to come in the door. That's what happened. I'm trying to block the dogs out, and it's funny. As soon, of course, when I'm on an interview, it's going to happen. I love them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to fuss at them, but it's so funny. She's like, "Hey, I can hear you talking. You're leaving me out."
or they're saying they need to go for a walk for the evening. I don't know. It's one or the other. Or they just want to tear that Dallas Cowboy shirt apart. I don't know. It could be one of the three.
Yeah, it's one. I think I froze skin, but hey, listen, that happens, and you just got to keep going. It's live. You keep rolling.
You keep rolling. We keep rolling. Yeah, this is actually you're my first live interview that I've actually done. So I appreciate you coming on here for this because I've done them all pre-recorded, and I've just recently converted over from Zoom to StreamYard, and I've done 2 podcasts, live podcasts, and but I've not done the interview one, and I was kind of on the fence about it, but I just really enjoyed just the rawness of it.
I do too, because you're not as prepared, which I like. I gotta admit, I'm kind of more to the being, or at least utilizing my notes is what I'm trying to say. And this is good because it's good practice to kind of be more relaxed and just let it go. Even if you mess up, just go with it.
What projects are you working on now that we should be on the lookout for, Tyler?
Right now, I'm I'm doing a new podcast. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's called Tyler's Takedowns. I'm reviewing old school wrestling and the modern day product, and I'm also hosting the weekly report. We've had to take hiatus because when you're doing live coverage for all the pay-per-views we've had, it has got extremely hectic. So we've had to take a hiatus, but it is coming back this weekend, and I've been hosting that for WrestleBuddy. Let me clarify, and that new podcast, and just CCW's got a show in Nashville. Hopefully, I get to do something there. And stuff, and looking forward to what they're going to do in Nashville and in Florida before then. A lot of good stuff on the way, and heck, I'm trying to remember everything. It gets hard to even remember what I'm doing. I mean, and I can even be in the project. I'm like, okay, if I didn't write that down or put it in my phone, I'm like, where'd it go? What am I doing today? Is it Wednesday, Tuesday? I mean, seriously, I'm just speaking of real. I'm thinking I'm losing my mind. I've had coffee. I've drank my water. What's going on? I'm trying to do better. Getting my health, and it's like I'm all over the place still. Tony's like, okay, am I sure I wanted to have this guy on first? Wait a minute.
No. I'm all over the place too, so it's completely okay. We're on the same way.
Okay, so you understand.
I get you. I get you. It's like, I try to have in my mind of like, okay, next week I've got this on Tuesday and this on Wednesday. So don't book anything because on Monday you've got something else. But I want to do these other projects. It's plus you have to go to work on top of that too. The work thing always gets in the way.
I mean, it makes it tough. I mean, people don't realize, podcasting's tough. It's a tough business. I still had to grasp that, whether co-hosting or hosting or solo, or if you got a panel, it's a lot of pressure because people are going to see it. I mean, on YouTube or some kind of social media platform. And you got to be ready for comments. Like I did a weekly report, and I got to be honest, the way it looked, and I got to, I'm looking at my reference. I try to do it unscripted, but I've got to kind of have a basis to go on. And one comment was fair. It wasn't ugly, but he's like, hey, next time I'll paraphrase it, don't read the cue cards. And I'm like, hey, which, I get it. He probably, that way it's like this, it's more organic. And I respect what he was saying. So I liked it. And I said, I couldn't agree with you more. I could do better. And that's what I mean. You got to learn to take the comments, even if you think it was decent, maybe it could have been improved. And I mean, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't trying to be a smart aleck. Even if he was being sarcastic, hey, it wasn't a bad comment. That's what I mean. You got to learn to take the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, constructive, or just straight out criticism. And I had to work on that because I was the type that didn't wear my feelings on my sleeve and still do at times. So I had to learn, if you're going to be in this business, whether it's podcasting, wrestling, anything in life, you got to learn to take that kind of stuff because that's going to come with the territory.
Yeah, I remember some of my first comments that I got as an interviewer, and they were legit. Like, I go back and watch it now, and I honestly have a hard time watching the
Oh
very
my gosh,
first interview. So you
I,
too,
I have a hard
probably.
time. Yeah, I have a hard time watching a lot of the early weekly reports. They've even got a little better. It's like, okay, my goodness, that could have been a lot better. Where were all these comments before? They should have really reeled me, and they probably will going back now. Okay, let me find that episode now. I can really get him now, which I would understand. But I'm with you. It's hard for me to actually go back and listen to my commentary. I
What
mean,
would you
because
say?
I know there's no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say no. Go ahead and finish your statement.
No, out of respect. No, I was just going to say, it's hard for me to go back and review commentary because I'm like, even though I need to, and I have heard it a little bit, it's like, okay, there was some decent things here, but this is where I could have done something differently. Just like anybody, kind of you start finding areas of, well, let me add a little and or try to at least get some more expertise on the matter. But it is so hard and not making excuses because you can have all the notes you want to in front of you. And it's like, but when you're trying to focus on the match and then try to add some story to it, it still gets tough. You're lucky to get maybe a few of those ideas out. And you're like, the match can be over because even if they give them 8 minutes, 20 minutes, it goes by faster when you're there part of it, the event, not in the ring, but of course trying to tell the stories.
What would you say is the number one thing that you've improved on yourself?
I would say my confidence, at least a little bit, because I told you it could get some self esteem issues, and I think we all deal with that. It's just, but I can feel even doing the Wrestle Buddy podcast, whether it's audio or video, those kind of ventures, and doing the commentary. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but I feel like each and every time I'm starting to settle in a little better. I've noticed that was one thing that lacked, at the first couple shows because you're new. So you're trying to go, how do I find the rhythm and the flow of the program without because your nervousness wants to rush you like that. That's one thing. And I still got to watch that because I want to go, even when I make it breathe and take my time, it's like, okay, Tyler, I'm thinking to myself, slow down. It's okay, buddy. You got another partner, especially even if you're by yourself, just calm down, just be patient. Because patience was not my virtue. I'll just tell you. I mean,
Uh,
just things like that.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. It's probably the biggest thing with mine is I tell people how nervous wreck I used to be walking into shows, but now I feel like when I go into shows, like it's just like we're there with a purpose now, right? And I'm sure you probably feel the
Yeah, we
same
are.
way when you sit down to record a podcast or do any project. You've got that confidence now in yourself to just go in there and just be like, "This is my thing, and I'm going to do this."
And the main thing, Tony, we all have to learn is just have fun, even through all the eras. Just remember, it's about having fun. A lot of people can tell I'm getting tense, and they'll come up to me, man, just have fun, relax, and that is reassuring. As simple and as cliche as that seems, it's just that that takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. It still doesn't mean it's not going to be there, but it does really help, and it's a great assist. And like you say, podcast. What I get spoiled on though, and I still have gotten better, but there's still room for improvement on that front. Is I've got some editors, so it's just like when somebody's writing a book or an article. Luckily, you've got good editors that can clean up a lot of your mess. But I still strive to say, hey, listen, when I go back and listen to it, I'm actually okay. Now, does that mean it doesn't need to be better? Sure, but at least if I can be a little more comfortable, it's like, well, at least that's progress.
I love that, Tyler. It's just be happy I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think I'm gonna speak for you. I'm gonna speak for myself. I think we're very blessed to have
Mhm.
such a chance at having an amazing platform. Something our parents didn't have, something our relatives didn't have growing up. That we have an opportunity to not only like go out there and meet and interview and interact with these great talents, but we have a chance to share their stories, just like I'm sharing your story here today here on Toned In Entertainment. It's somebody said to me, "Oh, it's an honor that you interviewed me." Julio Caesar, that I interviewed a CCW rookie, he said, "I've been watching your show forever. It's an honor that you interviewed me." I'm like, "No, guys, it's an honor that there's a million podcasters out there that anybody takes an hour or 10 minutes or whatever out of their time to come and talk to me. And again, Tyler, it's an honor for me for you to come on and take time out of your super busy schedule to come on here and have this chat.
Hey, it was my pleasure, Tony. Thank you once again. I thought this was a fun interview. I liked it that it was live and, hey, like you said, organic. We talked about promos not being as scripted, and hey, there was no scripts here. So
No
whatever
scripts.
happened, and yeah, I love it. And it was, well, I would say it's an honor for me because I'm like, I've been a fan of your channel, watching your interviews, so I agree with Caesar on that one. But this being the first live interview, I'm humbled by you asking me to do the first ever live. So I've got a lot to live up to because you'll have a lot of talented wrestlers or personalities that'll follow, and it's like, okay, who's this guy? I got to outdo him. I'm teasing, but you've had so many just great guests. Izzy, I'm just like in awe. I'm like, not just CCW, but now she's wrestling. She started out being a super fan. I've checked out those interviews and Gangrel. I'm just like, I'm such a mark for Tony's stuff and Tone Entertainment.
I appreciate
my
it.
word.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Well, Tyler, is there anything else we should know before we go ahead and let you take the dogs to do whatever they need to do?
Well, since they're going to attack me because I'm not showing them attention, that's probably what it is.
Okay.
Well, you can check me out at Dustin Tyler 86 on Twitter. On Instagram at DD Peters 86, I believe. Tony can help correct that because I can't even remember my handles. I'm sorry. I should have took notes. I'll apologize beforehand as I'm laughing. WrestleBuddy.com. That's where I'm contributing. He was very kind saying I'm a wrestling journalist. That's putting it very graciously. I would say more of a contributor. And Tyler's Takedowns is also just launched. The first episode talked about Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. The next one reviews All In. I know it's a little late, but I've got creative control, so it's nice to not have to rush, even though it's probably happened a few weeks ahead of time. So, still building new episodes there, and the weekly report with WrestleBuddy. And hey, check out Intone Entertainment. My goodness, I got to put them over. Crying out loud. They put up with me. They got me. I've waited too long to bring the energy, but now that we're ending, but I thought I'd try.
You did a fantastic job. Well, Tyler, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Chatting with you for more than a couple lines on Facebook or whatever that we usually do. So definitely keep up the great work. I'll be looking out for more of your stuff coming in the future. Definitely. So guys, if you like interviews like this, we've also got, let's plug next week's podcast, the next Dropping Down from the Rafters podcast, because Julie Cutler, who's been on Fightful Select with Sean Ross, she's going to be joining me as my co-host.
There you go.
And as soon as we jump off of this interview, I'm about to go watch Wrestlers on Netflix because we've got Joe Mack, one of the stars from the show, is going to join us. So we've got 3 people on next week's Dropping Down from the Rafters podcast. So I'm super pumped for that live show at 7 p.m. next Tuesday. I can never remember. It's 7, 8 o'clock.
I'll be watching.
Thank you.
I'll be checking it out.
Check it in. Everybody chat during that podcast. And definitely go follow Tyler, guys, because he's doing lots of great stuff. He's a passionate dude who loves professional wrestling. He's not going to BS you in his articles. And he's just going to tell it how he sees it. And I do like that.
I'm going to tell it like it is. You can guarantee it.
100%. All right, guys. If you like interview podcasts like this with Tyler Peters, guys, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos. Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.